A year ago, I was 34 and stuck in a creativity block. I was a wildlife photographer, but I needed something fresh. So I decided to visit a cockfighting ring on the edge of a small town. I thought capturing the raw moments of rural life might spark my imagination. The atmosphere was electric when I arrived. The ring was old and makeshift, surrounded by worn wooden shanties and thick brush. I set up my camera and adjusted the lens. The crowd was excited, buzzing with energy, but I felt a chill creep down my spine. As I focused my camera, I spotted a shadow flickering just beyond the edge of the ring. I thought it was just my imagination at first, but it danced in and out of view, making my heart race. The fights began, and cheers erupted around me. I snapped shot after shot of the chaos, but I kept glancing back at that shadow. It was still there, watching. Then I started to hear whispers. They came from the dark corners of the arena. I couldn't make out the words, but I felt uneasy. Maybe I was just imagining things, but it felt too real. My palms began to sweat. I caught glimpses of a figure wearing a wide-brimmed hat. He seemed to be standing behind the shanties, just out of sight. I told myself to ignore it. Maybe he was just another spectator caught up in the excitement. But part of me felt he was studying me, watching my reactions. As the fights continued, that feeling deepened. I took a deep breath and tried to focus on my photography, but the sensation wouldn't leave me. The whispers got louder, echoing in my ears. Each time I turned to look around, nothing seemed out of place. My heart pounded. The air felt thick, heavy. It was unsettling. I didn't want to seem scared, but I knew I was. I snapped photos, glancing back again, and this time the figure was closer. A shiver ran through me. I couldn't shake the feeling it was real. I thought I saw the brim of the hat shift, and I could swear I heard my name whispered, a voice so soft I almost missed it. After what felt like hours, I left the cockfighting ring. I had my camera full of shots, but my mind buzzed with questions. Was that figure even real? Had my imagination conjured it up in all the adrenaline of the night? I drove home, feeling the weight of those whispers following me. Maybe something was watching that night, and it knew I was there. I couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. It lingered long after I got home. I kept checking my photos, looking for any sign of that figure, but nothing appeared, just the roaring crowd and the fighting birds. Sometimes I think about that night. Something was there with me, but I don't know what it was. I had questions, but no one. The days dragged on after that night. My photos had returned to the mundane. They offered no sparkle, no inspiration. Each time I picked up my camera, I thought of the figure lurking behind the shanties. Was it simply a trick of the light? It gnawed at me, a puzzle that needed solving. Then, one afternoon, I decided to return to the town. Maybe I could find something, some clue to lift the fog that had settled over my creativity. I arrived just before sunset, hoping it would be quieter. The cockfighting ring was still there, surprisingly unchanged. I felt a mix of dread and determination as I parked my car. As I walked closer, the memories flooded back. The cheers, the whispers, they felt trapped within the very air around me. I took a deep breath and pulled out my camera. It felt comforting, like a shield against whatever I was about to confront. But the moment I stepped closer to the ring, the unease returned. I wandered past the shanties, looking for the shadowy figure, but found no sign. Yet there was something different this time. The air felt thicker, charged. Just then, I noticed a small dirt path veering off into the woods nearby. It looked worn, like others had walked it before. Curiosity took hold. I followed the path, my heart racing. With each step, the whispers came back, faint, but they curled in the air like smoke. I strained to listen, trying to catch a word or two. Nothing clear, just soft murmurs that seemed to guide me deeper into the trees. Then I saw it, a low wooden structure hidden by the branches. It looked like a small shed. For a split second I hesitated, but the whispers pushed me forward, urging me to investigate. I approached cautiously, scanning for any signs of life or movement. The door hung slightly ajar, creaking eerily in the gentle breeze. I reached out and pulled it open. Inside, it was dark and musty, filled with the smells of damp wood and earth. As my eyes adjusted, I was taken aback by what I found. Rows of old photographs pinned to the walls. They were of fighters and birds, but it was the faces that caught my attention. Among them, I recognized someone, an older man wearing a wide-brimmed hat. The hairs on my arms stood on end. I staggered back, feeling the blood rush from my face. I had seen him before, not only at the ring, but in my dreams. And just like that, the whispers grew louder, almost deafening, spiraling into chaos in my mind. I turned to leave, panic setting in. But as I opened the door, a cold gust of wind rushed by, and I heard my name again, clear as day. "Follow me." I froze, heart now hammering in my chest. Was it the same voice as before? I couldn't tell. All I knew was that something was there, and it wasn't going to let me go easily. I stepped outside, but the moment I turned to retrace my steps, the shadows shifted. I glanced back, and he was there, the figure, stepping into the light. I couldn't breathe. The questions I had before were nothing compared to what I felt now. This was deeper than I ever imagined, and now I was in too deep to turn back. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. The figure stood still, a dark silhouette against the fading light of the shed. I felt trapped between a primal urge to run and an unnatural compulsion to stay. My mind raced, a dozen questions spinning. Who was he? What did he want? I took an involuntary step back. The man in the hat, his eyes were deep set, piercing through the dusk. I sensed a weight in his gaze, as if he knew my fears, my secrets. The chatter in my mind drowned out any rational thought. "Follow me," he said again, his voice gravelly yet compelling. For a moment, I couldn't move. Then, suddenly, the urge to turn and flee outweighed my curiosity. I stumbled backward and took off down the dirt path, pushing branches aside as I ran. The whispers followed me, echoing louder with each hurried footfall. I glanced back. The figure was still there, but now he was closer, almost gliding through the underbrush. Panic surged through me, and I pushed myself harder, fueled by pure adrenaline. My heart raced. It felt as if it might burst. I burst onto the main path, and finally the cockfighting ring came into view. I was almost safe. Almost. But when I turned around, the figure was gone. The fading whispers faded with him, leaving only the rustling of the trees. I stopped to catch my breath, trembling. The familiar sounds of the ring, a raucous mix of cheers and shouts, seemed a world away now. I should have felt that rush of nostalgia, but all I felt was disorientation. And then I noticed something in the dirt at my feet. It was small and rectangular. I bent down to pick it up. A photograph. I didn't recognize the scene at first. It was blurry, yet I could make out the same wooden structure I had just left. People were gathered around it, but one thing stood out. There, in the middle, was the man in the hat. I gasped. This was no ordinary photograph. The date scribbled in the corner read, April 15th, 1975. The people looked out of time, their clothes and expressions frozen in a moment I couldn't comprehend. Then it hit me. The whispers, my dreams. I was being pulled into something much older than I knew. Suddenly, the air shifted again, cold and oppressive. The feeling of being watched returned, heavier than before. It was more than just fear now. It felt like a warning. Someone or something was waiting. I needed to go. I turned to head back to my car when I felt an unmistakable chill of breath on my neck. I whirled around, but there was only silence and shadows. But I felt it, the presence, heavy and undeniable, lingering behind me like a storm that had yet to break. I had tapped into something that shouldn't have been disturbed, and now it had my attention. The urgency in my steps quickened. I was close to the road when the ground lurched, almost pulling me off balance. My legs buckled, and I looked up just in time to see him once more, now right in front of me. He gestured with a bony finger, urging me to stay. That was when everything went dark. I don't know how long I was out, but when I came to, I was lying on the ground. My heart pounded in my chest like it was trying to escape. I blinked twice, letting the fuzzy darkness around me dissolve into the dim light of dusk. I sat up slowly. Every muscle in my body felt tense. The air was still, heavy with silence. I glanced around, barely familiar with my surroundings. I was back near the cockfighting ring, but now it looked different, almost unreal, as if painted in shades of gray. That's when I saw it. The wooden structure, the arena, the remnants of a place filled with excitement and chaos. But now all I sensed was a thick, eerie calm. The shadows clung to every corner, twisting as the last rays of sunlight sank beneath the horizon. I stood up, brushing dirt off my clothes. My mind raced through everything I had experienced, the photograph, the whispers, the man in the hat. Had I dreamed it? I turned my gaze to the ring when a flicker of movement caught my eye. A figure stood at the edge, half in shadow. It was him, the man in the hat. My pulse quickened as panic welled up inside me. This time, he wasn't just a blur in the distance. He was right there, unmoving, just watching me. "Why?" I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. I could barely comprehend what I was feeling. The fear, the confusion, the urgency to confront this stranger. Yet a part of me still wanted to flee. He didn't answer. Instead, he gestured again with that same bony finger, beckoning me closer. The moment felt surreal, as if I were trapped in my own nightmare. I stood frozen, every instinct screaming at me to run. Then I noticed something in his other hand. A small object glinted in the low light, catching my attention. It was a silver locket hanging from a chain. My curiosity edged out my fear for a moment, and I took a cautious step toward him. As I approached, the whispers returned, swirling around us, filling my ears with indistinct phrases. I squinted, trying to catch the words, but they slipped through my grasp like smoke. The man tilted his head, as if waiting for me to say something. I took a cautious step toward him. As I approached, the whispers returned, swirling around us, filling my ears with indistinct phrases. I squinted, trying to catch the words, but they slipped through my grasp like smoke. The man tilted his head, as if waiting for me to say something. I took a... trying to steady the shaking in my hands. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. The locket sparkled once more, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Recognition? Regret? But it vanished before I could decipher it. Instead, he pointed to the ground beside him. I glanced down and gasped. There, half buried in the dirt, was another object, a small, rusted box. It was old, covered in layers of grime, but there was something unnerving about it. I felt an unknown pull. I dropped to my knees and reached for the box, my fingers trembling with both fear and anticipation. The moment I touched it, a jolt of energy coursed through me. It was as if the past seeped into my skin, a whisper of history I couldn't quite hear but felt deeply inside. And then I heard it, a loud crash behind me. I spun around, adrenaline flooding my veins. Something was there, shifting in the shadows. My heart dropped at the realization that it wasn't just the man in the hat I had to worry about. Suddenly, I was about to face the true nature of whatever had been watching me all along. The crash echoed through the night, a sharp reminder that I wasn't alone. My instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet were glued to the ground. I squinted into the shadows, searching for whatever had disturbed the stillness. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice wavering between bravado and terror. There was no answer, only the rustling of leaves against the cool breeze. I glanced back at the man in the hat. He remained still, the locket still glinting in his hand, absorbing the fading light as if he drew power from it. Tension coiled tightly in my chest. The whispers grew louder, almost mocking me now. I felt an urge to sprint away, yet I was anchored to the spot by an invisible cord. The box I had touched still pulsed with an energy that felt alien, yet strangely familiar. I looked back toward the rustling, half expecting to see something emerge from the darkness. And then I saw it, a flicker, barely perceptible at first. Glinting eyes peered out from behind the dilapidated wooden structures around the ring. My breath hitched as the creature stepped into the dim light. It was small, but the slack of its movements gave it a menacing quality. It looked almost like an animal, but its features were wrong, distorted, warped in a way that sent shivers racing down my spine. I turned to the man in the hat. "What is that?" I whispered. He didn't respond. He only stared, eyes wide, as if entranced. I tore my gaze from him, focusing back on the creature edging closer. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled back. My fingers brushed against the rusted box, still lying in the dirt. What was in it? Should I open it? The locket glimmered again like an urging hand. The creature lunged. I leaped to the side, narrowly avoiding it as it crashed into the earth where I'd just been standing. Adrenaline flooded through me, and I scrambled to my feet. I felt the cold brush of the wind against my face, a reminder that I needed to move. "Why are you doing this?" I gasped at the man in the hat, desperate for answers. He simply lifted the locket, offering it to me. For a fleeting moment I thought about taking it, but fear stole my breath. Before I could act, the creature sprang again. It was faster this time, darting towards me in a series of jerky movements. I dodged left, and my hand instinctively closed around the box. A surge of resolve pushed through me. Whatever was inside, I was going to find out. I shoved my back against the cool, rough wooden wall of the ring, feeling the pulse of my own heartbeat as I pried the box open. The sound of the lid creaking filled the silence, and a cloud of dust erupted around me. The creature halted, its eyes flickering for just a moment before refocusing on me. Inside the box lay a collection of papers, old photographs, and dusty letters, all connected by a thread I couldn't yet see. Just then, the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar, and I realized they were no longer just vague sounds. They began to form words, urgent, desperate, warning me. I wasn't alone anymore, not just with the man in the hat or the creature. Something else was lurking, waiting in the darkness, and it wanted that box. The realization spread like ice through my veins. I shot my eyes back up to the man as he slowly turned his attention my way, an unsettling smile creeping slowly across his face. "What have you done?" I stammered, the pieces of the puzzle not yet fitting together, and I sensed that whatever answers I sought were about to be revealed, but not without a cost. My heart raced. I couldn't shake off the feeling that both the man in the hat and the creature were waiting for me to make the next move. The weight of the box in my hands suddenly felt heavier, as if it contained more than just old papers. I glanced nervously at the photographs, but their details were too obscured by dust. The creature remained still, its eyes flickering, analyzing me. I dared not make a sudden move. "What are you?" I whispered, though I knew I wouldn't get an answer. The man just watched me, as if he found my fear entertaining. With a quick inhale, I focused back on the box. I began to sift through the contents, each piece feeling like it was igniting some dormant part within me. The first photo was of a group of people standing outside a colorful building, smiling and holding drinks. Beneath it, a torn letter addressed to someone named Lydia caught my eye. "We have to protect it." The words faded out, leaving a chill in my bones. Suddenly, the whispers intensified, drowning out the night sounds around me. "Take it back," they pleaded. "You mustn't disturb the past." A flash of desperation surged through me. Whatever the whispers were warning me about, I knew I had to take it seriously. The creature tensed, its posture shifting as if about to leap. "Get back!" I shouted, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. In that moment, the man finally moved. He stepped forward, lifting the locket once more. The way it caught the light sent a ripple of panic through me. I felt an urge to snatch the locket from him, to take control of the situation, but something in his gaze warned me against it. There was a life in those eyes, a knowledge that transcended time. I was a mere witness, and he was the orchestrator. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, though my voice trembled. "What do you want?" The creature shifted again. I was trapped, cornered between the man in the hat and this abomination. The whispers morphed into a loud chant, intertwining with the atmosphere of the night. My hands shook as I finally found an undamaged photograph. A child, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, smiling. The resemblance to me was uncanny. My breath caught in my throat. What did this mean? Why was my image among these relics? I felt a pull, a sense that this was tied to me, to who I was and where I came from. I needed to dig deeper, but fear stopped me. Just then, I heard a growl from the creature, low and throaty. It snapped me back to reality. I had mere moments to act. Someone or something was waiting for my next move, and I had to respond before it was too late. The man in the hat stepped forward, and for the first time I felt the hint of urgency in his demeanor. "You have to decide," he said, his voice soaked in gravity. "It's your choice." That was when I saw it, a figure darting in the shadows behind him. It was moving swiftly, gliding in and out of the darkness. I wasn't alone, not anymore. Panic coursed through me anew, and I understood. Whatever I uncovered next could change everything. I needed a plan, and fast. I froze, caught between two worlds, the man in the hat and the creature bearing down on me, and the looming shadow creeping closer behind him. Fear intensified, wrapping around me like a vice. This couldn't be happening. In my gut, I knew I had to escape, but my limbs felt heavy, as if the ground was rooting me to the spot. "Decide quickly," the man urged, his voice low and dangerous. His eyes flickered as if he could sense my pulse racing. I could feel the tension in the air shift, a crackle that announced something ominous was about to unfold. The whispers escalated, morphing into frantic pleas. "Leave, now!" My thoughts scrambled. I had to act, but I didn't know how. The photograph slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the ground. The child's face, my face, haunted me as it lay still. Who was I in relation to all of this? Suddenly, the shadow behind him lunged forward, revealing a glimpse of movement that sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't large, but there was something unsettling about it. It darted to the side, positioning itself just beside the creature, and both seemed to share a knowing glance, a partnership, An alliance? The man in the hat looked back, just as the creature hissed, baring sharp teeth. Panic surged in me like wildfire. I stepped back, but that only solidified my conflict. Would I confront this chaos or run away? The truth hung in the balance. I couldn't shake off the feeling that the locket had some answers, that it might explain why the photograph resonated within me. "That's not for you," I said, more loudly than I intended, targeting the man in the hat. It was an act of defiance. The words tasted bitter, but they felt necessary. I stepped forward, heartbeat echoing in my ears, fueled by raw adrenaline. To my surprise, he yielded, fixing his gaze on the ground as if contemplating my statement. "You don't know what you're asking for," he replied, his voice softer, almost coaxing. But I did know what I was asking for. I needed the truth, and this harrowing standoff demanded I take a risk. In a swift motion, I lunged toward the locket. My fingers grasped it, finally seizing control. Just as I did, a booming crack sounded nearby, causing both the creature and the man to stagger back. A cold, intense wind whipped through the trees, rustling leaves and sending dirt swirling. The disturbance had shifted everything. Whatever had been lurking in the shadows had made its presence known, and it wasn't finished. The creature growled again, its eyes fixed on the deeper darkness beyond, as if aware of an imminent arrival. I turned and followed its gaze, fearful of what awaited. That's when I spotted it, a set of eyes glimmering in the night, reflecting the light of the locket. They were locked onto me, watching. The urge to run surged powerfully, but I hesitated. Those eyes felt familiar. In a fleeting moment, everything clicked. The child, the locket, the whispers. Something about this was about to change my reality forever. I braced myself for whatever came next. Whoever, or whatever, was waiting for me to decide. The eyes remained steady, unblinking and penetrating in the shadows. My heart raced as the creature beside the man in the hat shifted nervously. It seemed to sense something stirring in the darkness beyond us, its low growl vibrating through the air. I took a step back, weighing my choices like stones in a balance. I had the locket. Its cold metal felt reassuring against my skin, but I still didn't understand its power. The man shifted his attention back to me, his voice laced with something akin to urgency. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he warned. I swallowed, trying to ignore the rising sense of dread. "Then help me understand," I managed to say, my voice steadier than I felt. What else could I do? Running felt like a betrayal to the whispers and the vision of my own past that had led me here. He chuckled darkly, his gaze flickering to the glimmering eyes in the shadows. "Do you really think it's that simple? Your curiosity could get you killed." Before I could respond, the eyes moved closer, revealing a form that seemed almost human, but distorted. I could barely make out features beneath the cloak of darkness that surrounded it. Everything in me screamed to retreat, yet I stood frozen, drawn inexplicably toward the unknown. Then, without warning, the creature next to the man sprang forward with a ferocious roar. I flinched, too shocked to comprehend its sudden aggression. The figure hidden in the deep shadows jerked back, but it didn't flee. Instead, it stepped forward slowly, revealing itself more completely. "What is that?" I whispered, dread creeping into my thoughts. My grip on the locket tightened, as if it possessed some kind of magic to protect me. Yet I felt more vulnerable than ever, exposed before these entities in the night. "That," the man in the hat said, his tone grave, "is your shadow, your past, a reflection of what you once were." With those words echoing in my mind, a wave of familiarity washed over me. It was as if I had glimpsed a fragment of a forgotten dream, a past life hidden away. My breath hitched. Was this the reason why I felt so connected to the child in the photograph? The figure stepped into the faint light, revealing a distorted visage that mirrored my own features, warped yet recognizable. I gasped, "No, this can't be happening." A low chuckle escaped from the man's lips, and the air charged with tension. It's time for you to face what you've repressed. The choice you must make now will decide if you live in the light or dive into the darkness. Before I could respond, another crack echoed through the night, more intense than the last. The ground trembled beneath my feet, and the creature hesitated, its focus shifting back to the swirling darkness, which only deepened. That's when I saw it, an outline slowly emerging from the shadows, each shape morphing into something large and threatening, a monstrous figure looming over us. Panic flared. I felt the locket slip from my fingers as I stumbled back, realizing the imminent threat now standing before me. I had to act. Whatever I had been waiting for was unfurling before my eyes, and it wasn't just the remnants of my past. I took a breath, ready, willing, but uncertain about where this new path would lead me. Something ancient was stirring, and it expected a response. The tension in the air thickened, wrapping around me like a vice. The monstrous figure loomed closer, its shadow stretching out, consuming the light. My heart raced as the creature beside the man in the hat growled louder. It sensed the danger, just like I did. I stumbled back, trying to regain my footing. "What do I do?" I shouted, panic creeping into my voice. The man in the hat didn't answer. He just stood there as if he was waiting for me to make the first move. Then I did something I didn't plan. I reached for the locket. My fingers brushed against its cool surface, and a flicker of understanding passed through me. I whispered, "What is this?" To my surprise, the locket began to hum. The sound was soft at first, then grew louder, filling the empty void and pushing against the looming figure. I felt a surge of energy, a warmth radiating from the locket that filled me with a strange confidence. "Use it!" the man yelled abruptly, snapping me back to reality. "You have to confront it, face your past." The distorted figure inched closer. I saw the faceted light catching on its edges. It looked like me, but trapped in a warped version of reality. I was both terrified and drawn to it, and for a moment I hesitated. "Face it," I murmured to myself, gripping the locket tighter. "It's just a part of me. It can't hurt me." Drawing in a shaky breath, I stepped forward. As I approached, the figure's features sharpened, revealing emotions I had long buried: fear, sadness, regret. Memories rushed through me like a torrent, overwhelming yet familiar. "You have to show it you're not afraid," I recalled the man's urging. So I gathered my courage and channeled it into the locket. I pressed it against my chest, feeling the resonance grow within me, then said, "I am not you. I am more than the darkness. I choose the light." To my astonishment, a beam of light burst forth from the locket, illuminating the shadowed figure. It recoiled from the brilliance, its form wavering as if struggling against the truth I had just declared. The ground beneath us shook violently, and I stumbled as the monster let out a horrid shriek, rising before me. But the man in the hat grinned, his expression shifting from fear to something almost hopeful. "There you go, don't stop." The sounds of chaos abruptly crescendoed. Freeing myself from the grip of fear, I pushed the light towards the creature. The moment my light touched it, the figure exploded in a swirl of shadow, dissipating like mist. But then, from the depths of the darkness, I saw something else. A flash, a shimmer that shimmered like a beacon. It pulsed, drawing my attention away from where the figure had been. "What is that?" I gasped, hope flooding my heart, yet shadowed.
"I don't know," the man said, his tone now steeped in curiosity. "But you'll have to find out fast. It's calling for you." At that moment, the ground beneath began to vibrate again, louder this time. I felt the air thicken, an overwhelming presence looming behind me. One thing was clear: whatever came next, I couldn't back down now. The tremors rumbled through the earth beneath my feet, echoing the chaotic symphony of my racing heart. I shifted my gaze back to the shimmering light, still pulsating with unnatural life, beckoning me to draw closer. The menacing shadows that had haunted me felt momentarily diminished, but the man in the hat remained, his gaze glued to what was unfolding. "Don't lose focus," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around us. "You're on the brink of something significant." I plunged forward, compelled by an instinct I couldn't fully comprehend, my fingers reaching towards the radiance. The whispering voices that had surrounded me were louder now, forming a chorus that both frightened and empowered me. "It's the truth," they urged. "Find it." The atmosphere shifted as I crossed into the luminous sphere, and I felt warmth replace the frigid air. The shadows trembled at the edges, their essence flickering as though they were organic rather than ethereal. As I stepped into the light, the chaotic whispers began to separate into fragments of clarity, a thread of the past woven into my conscious mind. I felt images wash over me like waves, moments from my childhood, echoes of laughter and sorrow, interspersed with flickers of darkness. They were memories, but they weren't mine alone. They were fragments of where I came from. The faces of strangers became intertwined with my own, revealing connections I hadn't known existed. The figure in the hat's voice rose above the swirl of memories. "You must welcome them, embrace your truth." His composure was unnerving, as if he had witnessed this all before. With each pulse of the light, I felt the weight of my fears, the truths I had buried, emerging like a tide. "I see you," I murmured into the brilliance, reaching for the essence of the memories, each one vital and intertwined with my identity. It was as if the collective consciousness of those who had come before me was threading through my veins, urging me to acknowledge them. As I settled into the waves of nostalgia, I took a deep breath and beckoned the memories to reveal their purpose. "Show me what I need to see," I implored. And the light flared brighter, expanding around me and illuminating the figure lurking behind the man. The shadow writhed, twisting as if it were reacting to the illumination, the once distorted figure shifting and regaining human-like features, taking on the form of my lost relative, a woman with compassionate eyes, her resemblance strikingly familiar. My heart raced. This was no ordinary coincidence. This was family buried deep within the fabric of my being. The man in the hat stepped back, awe replacing the cruel smirk. "You have awakened the past," he breathed, as the shadows began to retreat, swirling around the edges of the light, frightened by its purity. "Who are you?" I asked the figure, my voice quaking with curiosity. "I was lost, misplaced in the darkness," she said softly, her voice a soothing balm. "But you've given me a chance to return, to help you find your way." Lightning split the sky, illuminating the menacing faces that loomed behind me, a cacophony rising as the shadows writhed against the edges of the light. My resolve solidified. "I won't let you take me back there," I declared fiercely, the warmth of the light anchoring my determination. "I choose to remember." As the landscape fought against the shadow's encroachment, the ground crackled, vibrations echoing deep within. The gathering storm intensified, an overwhelming force poised to explode. The light surged, enveloping the figure, my ancestor, and as she fused with the radiance, the shadows were consumed, shrieking in defiance before disintegrating into nothingness.
The man in the hat faltered, his expression shifting from discretion to fear. "You think you've won?" he hissed, a fury glinting in his eyes. "You have only scratched the surface of what binds you to this place." "I know I don't understand everything," I shouted back, "but I'm not running anymore. I'll embrace whatever comes next." Then a deafening crack ruptured the silence, and the light exploded outwards, washing over everything. I felt weightless, suspended in time and space, as if I was both deeply rooted and untethered. With eyes closed, I held my breath, anticipating the impending crash. But when I opened them, I was standing alone in the clearing. The cockfighting ring and all its malevolent forms had vanished. Only the distant night sounds remained, punctuating the stillness. I grasped the locket in my hand, its energy now quiet, a talisman of the choices I had made. I stood there, gazing into the woods where shadows whispered, knowing many questions remained unanswered. Had I truly faced my past? What existed beyond this place? As I took a deep breath, an unsettling calm settled over me. I still had no concrete answers, but I understood this much. I was a part of the stories that entwined within those shadows. I had moments to uncover and a legacy to resurrect. I walked away from the ring, the echoes of whispers trailing behind me, leaving not just a past, but the promise of something yet to come.